This is New England Soccer Weekly with Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano, and Mike DeSilva on 790 The Score.
Well, game one of the MLS Cup playoffs in 2023 did not go the way that any of us expected in this group, but I don't think we were off base in what we told you what you should have expected. What happened after it? I don't know. I don't know if he really can blame the referees. I don't know really how to diagnose what happened in that game. What I can tell you is that I will be unequivocally apoplectic.
A word again. Now you're not getting me this week.
I will be enraged if we come onto this show next week. Yeah, because they're playing next Wednesday. So
say next Thursday.
Next Thursday. I'm sure I'll do something on Spaces maybe Monday or Tuesday.
I like that.
If I don't hear something from MLS by the time we do another show, there's going to be hell to pay.
Oh.
Because in no way should Kai Wagner be on the field for Game 2 of the New England Revolution versus the Philadelphia Union. And the fact that this fact-finding phase has taken so long is a disgrace. Mike, Nick, hello.
What's up?
Good morning, everybody.
Or afternoon or night, however you're doing this,
yeah.
Listening, watching, appreciate it. Welcome to the show.
I feel like we have to start here. And for reference, we are recording on Thursday morning, so by the time you might be watching this on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, some people even watch us late on Tuesday. Whatever, as long as you're watching, we appreciate it. There might be news where Kai Wagner might be suspended, and this rant might not be worthy. But in the second half of the game the other night, Kai Wagner uses an alleged racial slur towards Bobby Wood, which is was directed to those in the Asian community. It was said in German. Apparently, Kai Wagner doesn't watch any U.S. soccer media because he doesn't realize not only is Bobby Wood an Asian American, oh yeah, he's got a German background because he was living in Germany. So maybe trying to pull a slick one and being racist in German was a bad idea, Kai Wagner, because Bobby Wood heard it. Now, the question is, what does the investigation process look like? We'll find out over time. There's things that I've heard over the last couple of days here. So we'll see where we go. Does take away a little bit from the game, but Kai Wagner is a big piece of this Philadelphia Union attack. And yes, he's on his way out, and we've heard the rumors for a while now that this is the last dance for this specific Philadelphia Union group. So how does the league even go about doing this thing? That feels like it's a bigger story to me going into Game 2 than the Carlos Hill thing, because Clint PA said on Zolak and Bertrand earlier this week that Hill's going to be fine.
He's fine.
So, which I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But Wagner, there's no way this guy should be playing. Have you guys seen the video? Did you guys see the video where the alleged incident happened? It seemed like Vrioni had signaled to the referee that something was said, and Bobby came over to affirm it and confirm it. Thoughts?
I mean, it's obviously around the world. Racism in soccer is an issue. We see it a ton. We would think that here in the United States, we would be a little bit better than that, regardless if the player is international or not. It's something that we take very serious here. I don't speak German, so I can't tell you whether or not he actually said anything. I trust that they will do an investigation and whatever penalties. I mean, if it's true, then yeah, absolutely, there should be some type of suspension. Obviously, if they win, if he ends up playing Wednesday and they win, are we going to sit here and be like, is that the reason why they got eliminated? No, but I just think
it's a disgrace. It's more of an indictment on the league.
Well,
if he plays
but if they come down, but if there's an investigation being done that's not done yet, they can't suspend it for something they haven't proved. So therefore, like if this is something that they investigate further and Philadelphia happens to move on, if they knock out the Revolution in this game Wednesday because it's not enough time for the investigation, and they prove that it was said, yes, I would hope that there will be an explanation and a suspension for the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear cut. Like if this investigation happens and what they're alleging happened on the field, that's it.
I think that there's
it's a disgraceful thing. It has no room in sports, and that's it.
And it's sad because it shouldn't be taking away from the sport, and internationally it does. I mean, You see Vinicius Jr. in Spain deals with it on a weekly basis. Whenever he's on the road, it's disgusting what he has to go through, and it's disgusting. If, again, all of this is alleged, none of us speak German. There's an investigation being done. We'll wait to see it out. I don't want to. We live in a time where we kind of jump to conclusions very quickly. I do not condone it in any way, shape, or form, and you should be reprimanded for that pretty heavily, in my opinion. But let's wait to see what the investigation says.
Yeah, I think for the world we live in now, and you take the Bruce thing out of it for a second, because I'm not even going to go there. But you have Taxi Fuentas, Van Zier, which feels like a million years ago with the New York Red Bulls. 2 incidents where you had players use racial slurs. Right? Yeah. That was right. I mean, the Red Bulls were a completely different franchise back then. There's no way the guy could be playing on the field next Wednesday. Investigation, whatever. But at the end of the day,
what's his stance on it
for the leagues?
What does he say about it? Does he say you misheard me, or is he denying claims?
He's not talking to. He hasn't talked.
Because if that was me, and let's say I said something in Portuguese that may be heard by somebody else that thought they heard me say something, but I didn't, I would be like, no, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, the thing here is that the Philadelphia Union have shut up. They're just not saying anything. And that's what I find interesting. If your player didn't do it, especially one of your most important players on this roster.
Yeah.
The offense that the guy goes through. You would think that the Philadelphia Union would be out there trying to defend this guy. They are not saying anything, which again goes back to my original point. There's no way that Kai Wagner should be playing next week.
Well, the Revolution didn't either with Bruce, and I think that this is just a matter of there's legal things involved here.
Well, the Revolution thing is.
Well, we don't have to uncover that.
I know. But from a club standpoint, this is club versus club. This is not club on club crime, which is alleged in the Bruce thing. If I'm the Philadelphia Union, I'm doing everything I can to defend Kai Wagner, and while also simultaneously.
But you would want to do that with the facts,
right? With the facts, and then you would think that they would have that.
Because let's say they back him, and it comes out that he did say something inappropriate or insensitive. Now, what does that look like on the Union's part? Right. Or.
Also, it shouldn't take that long to figure out if it happened or not.
It really shouldn't.
It was a moment in time on Saturday.
That happened on camera.
Yes.
So there should be some type of. I'm assuming we'll get more information on this in the next few days. You would hope. They've had a lot going on. Not to say that the games are more important than being racially insensitive. That comes first, of course. But you have to understand that they have to do their. You have to be 100% positive before you potentially throw somebody's name through the mud that what they did is true.
If this was
alleged,
if this was a Philadelphia Union bench player, this investigation would be shut and closed already. The fact that it's Kai Wagner, it's going to get drawn out. I don't know how that's necessarily fair to Bobby, but this is something because for everything that we've been dealing with up here since July. And now you have a real racial alleged incident that could change the series of this playoffs completely.
It could definitely. Yeah.
They still have Gadzag. They still have Carranza. I mean, that offense was running rampant through the midfield the other night. But you take Wagner out of that offense. Philadelphia is vulnerable. If there's anything that game showed you the other night is that you could beat Philadelphia in this 3-game series.
The mental lapses just killed them.
It was one of those.
They should have been up 1-0 before.
And we'll get into this, but that's. I texted you guys this, I think, or another group text, but soccer is such a funny, cruel game because the Revolution come out flying. They
looked great.
You have 3, not 1, not 2, 3 opportunities in a 17-second span. If one of those goes in, I'm not saying the Revolution win.
That game changes.
The trajectory of the game is totally different. And then you have something I'm sure we'll talk about with Lori Lindsey, a play on Carlos Heel. Pretty targeted, debatable. We can talk about that as well. And then what happened after the fact of Heel coming off the field, then your trajectory of the game changes again. So
for sure.
Soccer's funny, man. It's a funny, cruel sport.
It is a funny and beautiful sport.
Beautiful,
as it is cruel.
The best.
Mental lapses are a thing, and you've seen it time and time again. That you could dominate a game, but all it takes is that 5 to 10 minute window where you allow a team to gain confidence. These are professional soccer players, okay? These guys, it doesn't take much to get them going, And that's what it was. Once they got that lead, they never looked back.
And that's the one thing that does make me pause too as we go into this game on Wednesday is that 3 of the last 4 games you've seen it where 3-0.
Yeah.
Boom.
But
And that,
you know what?
and that again.
In those past games, though, it felt like they deserved to be down 3-0. They did not to be down 3. Deserved to be
still happened.
It happened.
Doesn't
yes,
matter.
But they didn't. The score sheet at the end of the first half doesn't tell you the full story of that first half.
The score didn't tell the story, but unfortunately, it's
the first 15
I don't know,
minutes
guys. 19th minute goal, 26th minute goal, 37th minute goal. That's a big chunk of the first half.
It is a big chunk in the first half, but you could see it where it came in windows. Like it's just like you have these spaces in the game that we've been mentioning all year long. They cannot have. They need to have that killer instinct. Or if you say you concede a goal, you can't all of a sudden keep backtracking and start treading water. You need to go back on the attack. That's the issue I think with this team is sometimes they have these mental lapses and they do give up these consecutive goals where they look lost for like 10, 15
well,
minutes.
you talk about mental too, Tom, like that 19th minute, or again, everything has gone pretty much New England's way for 18 and a half minutes. A mental mistake, a penalty kicked, shift
Just
of
a
the
bad
game.
penalty.
Carlos Heel comes off, and then you're down 3-0. It's tough spot.
It's a terribly tough spot. With that said, I still feel like that team was good enough in the first 15 minutes to walk out of there, at least with a draw, force that thing to penalties. But then, like you said, you lose Carlos, then the 19th minute penalty happens, which, by the way, why is Jacob Jackson starting a playoff game? Why do you start?
I was going to say that's a mistake completely on the keeper.
Yeah.
When the ball is away from the goal like that, there's really no business A to be out of the goal, but B to commit a foul. His back was there was a lot of things wrong there.
I think.
But I don't know, but like that overarching statement's kind of difficult.
What?
With the options that are available.
You go to Earl. You go to the guy.
I would go with somebody a little
anything.
more experienced with Earl personally. I don't know if that's going to make or break in the game, but it definitely in that instance made a difference.
That for that goal specifically, yes. The other two were not his fault.
Well, let's expand on the rest of the game. Let's take a break. Come on back. Lori Lindsey from MLS Season Pass returns to the show to break down Game 2 of the Union.
One of our most viewed of the year with Lori Lindsey.
It's our girl, LL.
Revs in the Union, Game 2. We'll have Lori Lindsey on next. All right, so the Revs come back here next Wednesday to host the Philadelphia Union. Kind of already gave you a little bit of a teaser with that. And now Lori Lindsey from MLS Season Pass on Apple TV returns to Providence to kind of figure out where we go from here. What do the Revs do this weekend with Carlos or next week with Carlos? What happens with Kai Wagner? Lori, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you all.
So
appreciate it.
I started this week saying I am going to be enraged if Kai Wagner is playing on Wednesday. With everything that we've had with racial incidents in MLS this year between Van Zier and Taxi Funtas, it doesn't feel like, even as there is an investigation going on and MLS is in their fact-finding stage, it doesn't feel right if Kai Wagner is playing on Wednesday. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, listen, it wouldn't be right for me to speculate. I know that the statement has been out, right? We've seen the statement from the league, and they take these situations incredibly seriously. And I think that's the next step, right? Letting that play out. But for me to speculate on what the punishment would be, any of that, I think it's just important to see that play out and go from there for these two teams.
But you could understand the Revs fan frustration from that standpoint, right? Yes, I know what the statement is what the statement is, and what happened, but you think about what's happened with Revs fans this year with the league investigations and everything. It feels like it's another thing that as one great TV opening said, through the sands of time, so are the days of our lives.
What is going on?
I don't know
with that comparison.
Yeah.
It's like every week it's something new with this New England Revolution team. They're at the center of drama in one way or another. Yes, I think that's fair to acknowledge since July.
Yeah, is that a question? Yes, you all have.
It's a general statement.
That is true. I can agree with you. This team has been through a lot, no doubt. I think.
But you know what? For a team that's been through all this stuff, they're managing it, right? I mean, they didn't look like that team that should have been down 3-0 at halftime the other night versus Philadelphia, I thought, to start.
Oh, no. I mean, in fact, I think that this is, even Chris Whittingham and I on the broadcast, this current team, such a strong group. But then also, if you just think about some of the players missing, Barrero, like, I mean, this team would be flying, I feel like, despite some of like everything that's gone on this season, plus also just some players that have been out for long-term injury. So, but yeah, I think anytime, more specifically, anytime that you lose a player like a Carlos Heel, and it was almost a bit strange because Chris and I were on that call on May 20th where Carlos Heel got injured and had to come out. So I think it's one of those, when you lose somebody that's such a focal point in the attack, it did feel like the Revs lost their way a bit, right? As soon as that happened, it was like, okay, how are we going to attack? Who's going to be the focal point to try to build out? But yeah, I mean, listen, this is a strong team. We know how good you all have been at home. I think that will continue regardless. And so I think this sets up for an incredible matchup next Wednesday.
We started in the open talking about soccer being a funny and cruel game, a beautiful game, but funny and cruel, Lori. And what we saw here, what Tom kind of intimated, is that through the first 18 and a half minutes, the Revolution were flying. They had that like barrage of chances, 3 right in a row. And then once the mistake happened in the penalty, and then the game shifts and Carlos Heel comes out. So did you see that same thing? Will the Revolution be able to build on those first 18 minutes?
Yeah, certainly. It does sound like Carlos Heel's back, right? Or at least there was reports that he was training, and
he should be
the
fine.
coach said he was fine.
It looks like Carlos will be back on Wednesday. I'd be shocked if he wasn't out there.
Yeah, exactly. So plenty of time. I mean, I think that's a positive aspect, right? You have 10 days between these two games just to regroup, settle in. But yeah, I mean, I was actually more shocked, not from a Rev standpoint, that you all came out and put pressure on Philadelphia. It was more the start of Philadelphia. They looked kind of lackluster to me to start that game. And I think it would have changed the complexity of that game if you would have been able to put that one away at the beginning of the game, and then they're chasing now. How do they respond to that, right? But yeah, I thought the first 15, 20 minutes, certainly all Revs until, unfortunate for you all, the penalty kick.
You go back to that first 15, 20 minutes. It was like a representation of what Union fans have been griping about since the return of the Union to league play, since the end of Leagues Cup, right? Just really slow, like you said, absorbing a lot of pressure early on. If that Chankali ball bar down goes in, I mean, that, like you said, the complexion of that game is completely different. Where it gets interesting is this Carlos Heel, he's marked for years now. Even when the old regime was here, it was always they're targeting Carlos in games. The referees aren't doing enough about it. But it felt like because you had kind of, a drill instructor on the sideline in Bruce Arena, maybe the referees were quicker to pull for cards and stuff because you have that vocal presence.
Sometimes it works the opposite. If you're too vocal with the referees,
sure,
they
and
might,
you've seen that happen in the past. Yeah. But I look at the Carlos thing 2 ways. One, do you think it really does change the complexion of that game if Miguel Ure, takes a yellow card early on there where the referee doesn't give a card? And could Carlos have stayed out there a little bit longer than he was? If he is going to be playing next week and everything, if he's 100% now, to be coming out in after 15 minutes, did that stick out to you? Like, was that like, it kind of seemed unexpected for a guy that, everybody talks about being such a aggressive, hard player.
Unless he was hurt.
In terms of Carlos Heel, yeah. It does feel like almost a mirror game of the one back in May 20th. I think he took a hard knock, if I remember, maybe not, but he ended up coming out, right? But regardless, yeah, I mean, I think that is something to look at. I mean, I think you always have to be looking at the players that are going to be targeted, especially in these types of games, right? If like Philadelphia would know that he is the best player on the field, he was going to be the best player on the field. He's going to be the focal point. He's what makes the Revs tick. And so I think if there's going to be a hard tackle, yes, I do believe that statements and control of the game need to be made. But I never felt like at the beginning of that game, it felt choppy in some ways, but I never felt like it was out of control. I felt like it was a hard tackle, and it was a late tackle for sure. But it didn't feel like it was like malicious in terms of like, let's get Carlos Heel out of this game, right? From like, that's the tactic. That didn't feel like that was the case at all in my perspective. But yeah, I think there has to be some understanding going into the games of what these games mean. It's a new season, right? We've heard a lot of coaches talk about that when you get into playoffs, and like, how do you protect players? How do you make sure that we're keeping best players on the field, and knowing that that looks different from player to player, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, and how does the current like setup of the playoffs affect that? You know, there's no aggregate score. It's just wins and losses, best 2 out of 3. It's not to say that they were conceding game 1 by taking Carlos out, but is there a part of you that's like, hey, we don't need to keep him out there. He doesn't need to force his way through it, because we could lose 6-0 and it won't matter if the next game we go out and win. Is there like that part of that
penalties, no less,
mental process at all?
And just in the overall like tactics and understanding of each game,
like just if you're Carlos Hill, or if you're Clint, and
are you saying you think he took himself out of the game?
I just say that like if the score of the game doesn't matter, it's not like it's an aggregate score.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that played a part in their decision? Be like, well, maybe we shouldn't force him. If we lose this game, we can still get it back in game 2 and have him out there.
Oh, for sure. I think you always have to be thinking about those things, but I think you would be thinking about that in the regular season as well. The season's long, so it's about managing, okay, what does this mean? Now, I don't think at that minute, I think Carlos Heel, from what I've seen, I think he's willing to play through things, right? Like if he is hurt, but I do believe you have to be thoughtful in what that looks like in terms of how am I feeling? He seemed to be in pain. Gets himself off or has some sort of discussion, right, with the coaching staff. But yeah, I think that's always something to be considered, is how do you approach the game? How am I feeling? Am I risking further injury? Get me off this field if I'm not going to be ready for the next game. Yeah, I think that's always in consideration, though.
But let me ask you, but you watch him, like if he didn't get off on the field on his own volition, I can understand, okay, you don't want to risk it.
He tried to play a little bit after it.
He walks off the field on his own power after 15 minutes. It doesn't sit well for me, especially if you know
not many
you have
things
that
sit
second
well with
game.
you. It's not many things that sit well with you.
That's true.
We've learned over the years.
Wait, so you think he just pulled himself off because he didn't want to be in the game, or what's your actual thinking?
Yeah, what's your? I would like to know that too.
Actually, me too.
I was interested to see him pull himself out of the game, walking off the field on his own power, and just throwing his hands up and more. He seemed more aggravated with the referees than he was calling for Clint to take him out.
But Lori said we've seen this happen before.
My thing is, I thought he could have gave you more. I thought he could have gave you more time with the way he was more so acting than I think he was portraying how hurt he was. That's my personal opinion. I think that's a tough spot for him to pull himself out of as a captain of this team. If you first half.
What happens if he was hurt?
Minutes.
If you're hurt, though, you're not doing as a captain. You need to make the tough decisions, and if you're hurt, you're not doing your team any favors.
Yeah, the thing that I said, and I've called a number of Revs games, right? Like outside of that May 20th game, where it seemed like he actually was hurt, and I think he had a knock prior to that game, if I remember, and Bruce was telling us that they were managing him, making sure that they could keep him for the longevity of the season, right? Because he is their best player. Yeah. We know that. So going off of that context, outside of that, I feel like I've only seen Carlos Heel show up for the team, right? Step up. So it felt to me that like, okay, he actually is in a bit more pain. Yes, he might be frustrated on how this game is starting and how it feels like it might go in terms of the competitiveness, how it might be a disruptive game. There might be some chippiness just given the emotions and what's at stake. But I feel like I've only seen Carlos Heel, and I don't know if I've said this in a broadcast, but certainly offered to one of the coaches is that like he shows up. Like that is a DP that you can rely on, in my opinion, that is like working.
It seems like an unfair accusation, to be perfectly honest with you.
But if you watch the rest of the playoffs, juxtapose what happened to Lucho Acosta the other night. Similar situation. It's chippy as all heck. He's getting beaten really early. He's literally walking through the first 20 minutes of the game, and he's talking to the training staff like, probably giving them a signal.
Do you think that makes him like the team better?
I don't necessarily think it makes the team better. I mean, he did score and he did assist on Barreal, but I'm just saying, like,
the game isn't about pride. It's about, and this is also a guy who in 2020 you said multiple times was done for the year and it'd be dumb for him to rush back. And he did come back. It was an integral part of them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals that year.
He gets knocked more than any player in the league. He
the
plays
most foul player in the
through
league.
every.
I don't think that's a fair.
That's why I think it's unfair to do that to him in this situation.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there then.
Oh.
I mean, we agree to disagree. Well, what do you want me to say? Jacob Jackson starts in net the other night. You had Earl Edwards Jr. sitting on the bench. It's only his third start. It kind of seems like a tough place to put that kid into in Philadelphia, playoff game. I mean, I know it wasn't a sellout, and it's not that normal Philadelphia crowd that they've had all year, but still, Jacob Jackson over Earl Edwards Jr. didn't feel like it was the right choice.
Well, I actually thought right choice, given that if you've already made that change and you've had that was his third game, I think it would be even a bit weirder at that point in time, headed right into, you've decided to go with Jackson, right? And then to like make the change right before playoffs when you got the win the previous weekend. I think that in terms of goalkeeping, that would have been an even weirder decision, in my opinion. So I thought like it wasn't odd that they were starting him. I've just been a bit perplexed by the decision to begin with, because why not stick with Edwards, right? Like,
right,
and see it out, especially because, Jackson ACL last year, coming off of, again, third game. So limited minutes in this league, and then important decision day game. And we saw what happened on the miscommunication between him and Romney for that game, for that first goal for Philadelphia, and then conceding the first goal for Philadelphia coming off his line, a bit clumsy in that decision as well. So don't get me wrong, some really great saves towards the end that shows his ability in terms of shot stopping. But yeah, I just felt like, more so I have questions on like, what is that doing to the back line? Because you want to go in with complete confidence and understanding about communication and across the board that everybody's on the same page. And I'm not so sure that that's there, right?
Well, it's a backline, too, that, to your point, has been in flux. It's had many different
Yep.
formations, too, for the last 2 months. So it's difficult to kind of have that structure going into the playoffs. And that kind of leads me to my next question, Lori, is that 3 of the last 4 games we've seen this team concede 3 goals in the first half very quickly. And then the game's not over, but as you know, playing, it's very difficult to get out of that hole. So if you're Clint Piet and this coaching staff, how do you rectify that very quickly going into this upcoming Wednesday?
Yeah, I think you get back to the basics of like being ruthless. Because the one thing I remember, even for at least the first half of this season, let's say, is the ruthlessness to not be scored on. And that was one thing I remember early on talking to Bruce. He was like, we needed to correct that from last year and like be more diligent. That is the focus, not giving up goals. That at least keeps us in it. And then we can build in, and we know that we have enough in the attack, but also just understanding your strengths are to send your outside backs forward, right? Like that has been the focal point also outside of like a Carlos Heel in the attack, is to get the width from the outside backs. You are always going to have a risk then of leaving yourself susceptible in transition. Yeah. So what is that? Then how do you manage that risk? And I feel like they have, against a Philadelphia team, you have to be really mindful of that. Then like the pollster, whoever's playing next to him, Kay, have to be like spot on then with their positioning. And I feel like they did get that right the first, as we said, first 15, 20 minutes. But I think once you start, and listen, I can't speak for the players or the organization in general and what's been going on, but playing for teams when you're losing or you've conceded goals, I can speak to that. And anytime something starts to go wrong, then you get that little bit of doubt, right? And then you lose Carlos Heel, then it's like, the tumbling blocks. And so I think you have to set like the mini goals in. Like, we're playing at home. We have been so good at home at Gillette Stadium. It is like we are not conceding in the first 45, right? Like, even if it's just mini goals like that, and then if you do, then we know what the response is going to be, right? Like, I feel like that, because they can score goals.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's an issue. I think they can be aggressive, but I mean, at this point in time, playoffs, you have to defend, like, your life's on the line. So
yeah, and Lori, you as a former player, what is that? Because people forget the mental side of it is such an important part of the game. And like you just mentioned, that mental lapse of like you're doing something so good, but that little, error can just start to, unwheel the whole situation. And now you're just backtracking. it took halftime for them, but is that something that as a player you're able to just kind of be mindful on the field? Is it possible to get out of that sooner than, going down 2 or 3 goals? Because I feel like that's where the Revs have struggled so much this year.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look at the team, right? There's a ton of leaders. There's a ton of experienced players, straight down the middle, especially the spine of the team. I think you have loads of experience from Farrell, Romney, Polster, right? Name them all. Carlos Heel, all the way up to Bobby Wood. You have these players that understand what it means in these moments. So I think those are the players then you have to be looking at and saying, all right, how do we manage this? If you go up a goal, if you go down a goal, here's the game plan, right? And so, yeah, they certainly have all of that ability. And one thing that I think Philadelphia will say, and we've known about Philadelphia, is they'll score goals, but they'll also leak goals. They'll concede goals as well. So in this particular series, I think it's also important to realize that, because I think if you give up that first goal with the penalty kick, then there's an opportunity to say, hey, not a problem. It's a tough place to play, but let's regroup. Let's make sure these next 10 minutes we don't concede. Right. To me, that's like those little things. And I think that's what will carry them through. That's what will get a victory at home, if that is a constant frame of mind. But it does start defensively, because even in the game on Saturday, right? They score the goal and then hit the post as well. So, I mean, there's going to be opportunities to score goals.
Last one before we let you go. Does this series go 3?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think both of these teams are too good at home. I think it's just they have been ruthless at home. And I think as much as the Revs have been, in like a bit of disarray with everything recently, I think they'll certainly rally. I think there's enough. I like how everyone's like, it has a little bit of a laugh there. There's enough experience, right, and understanding about these moments.
Yeah, and then tactically, you're not thinking that they need to change too much. It's just positioning and keeping their shape is going to be super important to allow their outside backs to get involved in the attack.
Back to basics. And
just go back to the basics, back to what kind of got them there before everything kind of fell apart.
Oh, for sure. Because I think if this is 4 versus 5, right? I mean, I think if it was a different matchup than Philly, that might be a little bit different, right? You might be tweaking some different things, or the opposition might be tweaking things. But these two teams really, I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot of similarities between the two of them and how they want to play. I think both teams are best in transition, right? Like they both, and we saw that on Saturday. I mean, there wasn't a ton of possession being had, right? It was pretty back and forth. So I think, yeah, who can play the best? I mean, that is soccer, but who can play the best on that day and utilize their strengths to the best? And I think when that's pretty equal, home field advantage in this league obviously is massive, especially for these two teams. And then also getting Heel back, having an understanding of somebody that can like really cause some problems.
Yeah, they should feel pretty confident going into game 2. It wasn't like the game was completely out of hand where they got completely bamboozled.
It's 1-1 right now. Well, 2-1 I guess. But if you look at the last 2 games, they split.
Easily the tightest series in all of MLS playoffs when you look at all the different playoff groupings. This is definitely the one that I think is a 100% sure coin flip. I think you can kind of lean one way or the other on every other series. Lori Lindsey has done a great job this season with MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Can't wait for Season 2 next year, but obviously we have a lot more games to go.
A lot more.
Lori, thank you for making the time today, and we look forward to having you back in Providence soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And wait, hold on. Game 3 is this a 3-game series for you all?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think I'm with you that I think home field definitely plays a part in it. And I saw enough from the Revs in that first game to think that, like, so many things didn't go their way in Philadelphia. It could have been a completely different game. They didn't get dominated. They had a couple of mental lapses where they had to reset at halftime. I think that they go out and they win pretty easily on Wednesday. And then, yeah, I think they do.
Well,
it's a long layoff between last Saturday and next Wednesday.
It is, but that gives you plenty of time to prepare.
Because The dynamics are amazing. I love it.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Hang around for a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, and this is super simplistic. Obviously, you always want to score first, Lori. But in this situation, with the game that we just saw, with the difficulties that the Revolution have had over the last 2 months, and then again, you're at home. You talk about the mental aspect of being a player. You absolutely have to score first, because I think if it goes the other way, it could actually get pretty ugly with the way Philadelphia just won, and then they get that mental upgrade over you in your own house. The crowd's going to go quiet. It's very, very important for this team, not only to start off the way that we've seen the last few games, but to actually bury one first.
It'll be interesting if Kai Wagner starts. I think it's a guaranteed. I think it's guaranteed that it'll be tight all the way. If he doesn't play and if he's suspended, I think the Revs easily walk out with a win. I think that's kind of my approach to it. If he's there and he's playing, it's going to be tough. You take Wagner out of that offense. Yes, they still have Carranza. They still have Gadzak. I think Ure is wildly overrated. But
Scored.
Yeah.
You scored.
It
was a pretty good goal, that second goal.
You think I'm tough on Vrioni. Thank God Ure's not up
Well,
here.
okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Let me get your
No,
opinion.
she's got to go. She has a meeting. We can't keep
You
her.
have a meeting? All right. I want to get a Veroni.
He's not starting. He hasn't started 3 games. They think he stinks. Trust me.
Well, I'll answer. What's your question?
No, I don't want to. Well, you got a meeting. I don't want to keep you for sure.
Yeah, I have 5 minutes. So,
Okay.
So here we go.
So
like
my thing about Veroni this whole season, and I could be proven to be wrong, is that when I see him on the field, I think spatially this team is better. I think he works better in the open field. I think he works better off the ball stuff. Obviously, when you bring a DP in with the money that he has, you want the results in the back of the net, and that hasn't been there. So, in your opinion, why do you think this hasn't worked for Vrioni, or should he have gotten more of an opportunity to prove himself on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I like how you word that in terms of what he brings spatially, because I would agree with that. I don't know if I would have used that exact terminology, but I think that does sum it up. I think he has the tools, right, to I'm trying to remember what game it was where he either scored 1 or 2 goals, but he was pretty clinical. It was at Gillette Stadium.
Was it in the
Montreal, or
I think it was Austin. I don't know, but I do know.
No, because it might have. Was it Chicago?
Yes, he scored against Chicago was connected with Bobby Wood.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think though if that was actually the game. It was after Leagues Cup because I'd returned from the Women's World Cup, so it was fairly close within that time range. But regardless, his positioning, right? Like I wouldn't say he's just like out and out burner to get in behind and create this like a verticality to the team. But his runs, if he's given a little bit of build up time, he started on like the left hand side and like kind of pulled out the center back and then got in behind off of a ball, right? And then it was a clinical finish. So I think there's a couple of things. Yes, he provides that. I also think this can be a tough league for strikers, and it does take time depending on understanding and linking up. I do think him and Carlos Gil have a good connection. I could be wrong about this, but my understanding they're good friends off the field as well.
That's what we've heard, yeah.
So I think there is something there, but I also think when you've wanted more output from your strikers, full stop, right? Like in the double digits consistently, then you're apt to, when you don't get that, then I feel like you're apt to change. You're not willing to kind of like ride that. And I think that would have helped Vrioni if he could have given more time just to be like, let's ride some of the waves to really see, because it seems like he's had the spurts, right? But it hasn't had like the consistency there.
Yeah. And oddly enough, if this team wasn't competitive early on, they probably would have given him more opportunities. Like it's almost like hey, we're not really competing for much. We might as well see what we have in this kid. But because they were so competitive and it just wasn't working.
And Bobby Wood was working
at the time. At the beginning of the season, he was.
I agree with that too. Yep.
So it's sad, because I don't see a world in where it is going to end up working out. And we were his biggest advocates, me, Nick, and myself, because we wanted to see it work because it is important. I think
do think the talent is there. It just hasn't translated with this group so far.
I think. I think we're at a point where I think at the end of the season they're going to cut bait. They
might have to just from a mental standpoint. I don't know if he's.
And plus, I don't think the next manager, because it's not going to be Clint. I don't think the next manager, and it's not a slam on Clint. Clint doesn't want it. the next manager is going to probably want their designated players. You're going to have one guaranteed spot open with Bo going. I think we're all kind of resigned to the fact that Bo's not going to be a designated player if he's here. It'll be under a TAM deal. They'll do some wonky MLS rules to keep him here if they want him here.
You mean we're not going to go out and get a Luis Suarez like Miami just did again?
Oh, that was a terrible move. I hate that move too. But I mean,
come
yeah,
back
it's
on
great
next
if you
week
want.
to talk about Luis
If you're
Suarez,
looking,
Lori, one of these appearances, you'll get time to like something.
Wait,
that we
Lori,
talk
what'd you
about.
just say?
I said I'll come back on next week to talk about the Luis Suarez because I would like to hear these takes.
Yes,
perfect.
I know.
Deal.
We would love to give you all the time.
Actually,
that you
could I just be a
offer us.
weekly guest?
Yes.
Listen, we would be so happy about
Lori
that.
might be my therapist at the end of this.
think
yeah.
so.
And you know what? It might only take you 1 week to regret saying that. I can assure you that.
By the way,
fair. We'll
easily the
reassess.
best hair on TV for
incredible
MLS.
hair.
Lori's the best. Lori, yeah, we'll take
Outfits,
fashion,
Lori,
hair.
we'll take that deal. We'll regroup next week after the game, win or lose, and we'll recap.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. I'll definitely come back on. I love this discussion for sure. So
Awesome. We
Perfect.
love
Yeah.
having you on. It's always a pleasure.
Good luck.
yeah, thanks.
And if you're
Perfect.
traveling this
Yeah,
week,
good luck to you all too. And yeah, see you on Wednesday for
all
sure.
right, Lori,
Sounds
you're
good.
definitely on the call for Wednesday?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There we go.
Perfect.
Lori Lindsey
Yeah.
and Chris Winningham will be on the call for Revs-Union. Lori, thank you so much. All right. Lori Lindsey, appreciate the time as always.
Best.
We love Lori.
Yeah, I was trying to get her out because she had a meeting.
She
and
wants
I
to
was,
stay.
She wanted to stay.
She was lobbing us questions.
I don't want to.
Like you nailed it though. Great hair, always fashionable.
Yes.
She's the best.
See, I
knowledgeable.
around the positive at some point.
It's
even
good.
though-
It's good.
And here's, by the way, here's why I hate the Suarez.
By the way,
thing.
we didn't
Can I
even
explain.
Oh yeah, of course, please.
What?
You don't want to say this for next week?
No, I'd rather get this out of the way now. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't think it's that hard. If I wanted to do character meet and greets, I'd go to Disney.
Oh God.
Like
He's a Disney guy. Have you heard
That's
this?
a good point.
I just think let's keep investing into the Cucho Hernandezes, the Lucho Acostas. Yeah, does Miami and Friends look nice on paper? Sure. But at the end of the day, I'd rather Miami build up the Kermanskys still because the Benjamin Kermanskys do more for MLS in 5 years than Luis Suarez will do in 2 years. Look at what Miguel Almiron
Inter's
is
loading
doing.
up though.
I like
loading
Miguel.
up.
Miguel Almiron is a beast.
He has look at like every team should aspire to do what Atlanta did in developing a Miguel Almiron, shipping him off to a place like Newcastle for a lot of money, and then he representing the league in a way that everybody says, "Oh, that kid Miggy from MLS."
I don't know. I don't disagree with you, but I think it's okay for one like a Miami is doing this. That makes sense.
It's but
It's a side
Loading
show.
up.
And
Loading
you know
up.
what? They're going to be the heavy favorite. You're putting more recognizable names there because you brought Messi in town.
And don't you want that as the league too? You bring in Messi for a reason.
yeah, but you also want Messi to. I'll use wrestling terms. I'll use wrestling
I love
parlance
that you looked
for
at him when you said that. He knows what the
I
hell
don't
you're
know
talking
what
about.
you're going to talk about.
You
but go ahead.
want Messi to anoint the next guy.
You want him to give him the rub.
You
if
want
will.
him to give him a push. You want Messi to
That's
give
a wrestling term, to give him the rub. Our wrestling fans will understand that.
you want Messi to give the next guy the push. He did it with Neymar. He did it with Mbappe. Neymar, everybody knew Neymar from Santos, but still Neymar was a young kid at the time and he needed Messi.
I don't think he did it for Mbappe.
Mbappe was there. It
No,
kind of
Mbappe-
elevated Mbappe a little bit.
Messi went there because of Mbappe.
Sure.
But I think the Neymar thing is a good comparison. And you just look at that, that trio that they had at Barca early in his early days, even with Ronaldinho there, then Iniesta, Xavi, all those guys. But I
just rather want just build up the young guys. Build
Yeah.
up these young
No,
studs.
I think the league's priority should still be to do that. I couldn't agree more. It
But
makes
the model that they're building in Miami is a short-term fix
short
to try to
term.
win.
Listen, they
pretty
spent
simplistic.
they spent a ton of money on Messi. Yes, I guess the MLS Cup will most likely come with it, but it's also to be like, hey, like look at how much fun we're having here. And while you're watching this product, here's some of the other young talent that we have in the league. So
Yeah.
it could benefit them.
Let's wrap up with
Oh, I thought you were going to wrap up with. I mean, you picked the Revolution to win. Is this going to be the season-ending Tommy take, or do you think that?
No,
they're gonna pull it off?
I first off, I'm justified in what I said based on the first 15 minutes about this team not embarrassing you down in Philadelphia. What happened after that is what happened after that. But I still think that this team, I believe that this thing will go 3. Kai Wagner's not playing. I think it'll be an interesting game too, though. I think it goes down to the wire for sure. So we'll see. But I do want to end on a positive note this week.
I wanted to give you credit too. I know we're moving on, but for not that third goal, we could have discussed that third goal about how it wasn't at least looked at for VAR for it being offsides. It's pretty close.
It's close, but I mean,
and by the way, it's very simple. I understand. 2-1 is a different mindset than 3-1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that I think that should have at least been looked at. That's what you have VAR for.
I think
or
you just
VAR,
kind of just
whatever.
get checked out because you know you have another game, no matter what. Doesn't
You
matter.
think?
Aggregate.
I mean, it's 2-1.
Coming back up here
Could
to
have been
Gillette,
looked
we've
at.
only lost
They
once this
didn't.
year.
I mean, it's to me, it doesn't make or break the game either.
All right.
If it was a game winning,
we're doing a show. If they got to bring it up.
No, yeah, I
cool.
agree. I respect it. I'm excited about what Tommy went to see
All right.
yesterday.
RIFC.
RIFC.
What did I say?
Rifsy.
Rifsy.
RIFC. My bad.
First official signing.
Coque Vegas.
Let's go. Keeper who honestly, not going to pretend like I knew him before yesterday. I absolutely did not. But doing just a little bit of research on him, looks like a guy, well, first of all, talented, played in La Liga.
Played against Nacho. Doesn't know Carlos. Played against Nacho.
Had
Doesn't
some
know
time
the Gil
in
family.
La Liga 2 as well.
Yeah.
And then he's been in the USL with San Diego.
Yep.
And was a fan favorite there. I mean, he just has a great personality. He's already talking about calamari and, some of our fried seafood that he said was a big something he really enjoyed when he lived
He's
living
definitely
in
a
Spain.
personality. This guy's definitely a
And
personality.
I know you were there, Tom, but it was cool for us that I mean, it was a big story yesterday.
Yeah.
It was everywhere, which was cool to see.
This thing's coming together. Like, we're 1, 2, 3, 4 months away.
Which
Think
is
about it.
crazy to think about.
4 months away. The USL season begins. 3 months away from preseason. There's more tryouts that they're having over the next couple of weeks here. There's more players that they'll be announcing over the next couple of weeks here. Coach Cano Smith, which
You got to chat with him yesterday.
got to chat with him yesterday. He looks relaxed in his role.
Love Cano.
Referenced Stevie Nickel. Shout out to Paul Mariner yesterday as well. Two
Nice.
guys that have inspired his thinking towards coaching. So, listen, they are moving in the right direction in a lot of phases there. I don't think they're doing anything too much, but they're also, it's not this fake vanity project that you'll hear on my radio station where people, kvetch about, oh, it's soccer. No, they're really this is a real strong business group that they've brought in here that they're getting real talent, and they've actually had to turn players away because there's so many tryouts that there's so many people interested, I should say, in the tryouts. So it's good. And then you go over to the stadium and you see the way that the stadium is being developed. I mean, it's just Rhode Island FC is happening. Rhode Island will have its first professional team here ever.
And I can't wait for the haters to see the success. And yes, I'll go on record saying that. I think it's going to be you can truly build something here in the soccer community.
Because the soccer community is here.
Yes, to own it.
Yes.
Like the Revolution, where they always will struggle, in my opinion, is it's hard for certain cities in New England to own it because it's New England's. Rhode Island, this is ours. So this is something that you could take pride in. They nailed it with everything so far, in my opinion, with the colors, the logo, the hirings, rollout. Everything's been fantastic. And this isn't just a sideshow, like you said. They want to win. Like, they bring in Cano Smith, a very educated soccer mind, who is not only played in the MLS, has MLS experience, was coaching in USL. He knows what this league is about.
And just to build on that too, why I think it's such a smart decision, he knows this area and how important is that to us here in Rhode Island and New England.
Massive.
You need to know
Parkhurst.
This
you don't think Parkhurst,
place.
who grew up here,
Bingo.
You don't think he understands, and you don't think he's involved. He's actually, I saw his tweet teasing it on Tuesday, saying, "Oh, big things coming tomorrow."
Yeah, he was the first one to kind of leak out that there was going to be a player.
We got to get Parky back on here too.
So yeah, I mean, and then plus you look at the ownership group in totality. Brett Johnson's Ipswich Town FC sitting in second place right now with 11 wins and only 1 loss in the championship. And they could be in the Premier League next year.
That is, he told us, we had an event. Brett told me and Tom. He said, there's 3 things the 3 best days of my life were my wedding, the day my children were born, and the day that I got promoted this past season when they got promoted to the championship. And he said, I won't tell you which order they're in either.
Tied for the most goals in the championship. So they have a style, they have a vision there, and hopefully it translates over to Rhode Island FC.
For sure. I think definitely will play a part in it. We're excited.
And the stadium looks great. Oh, my God, I cannot
wait.
I cannot tell you how great it felt to stand there and just sit in one of the corners. Because the way it's going to be set up is it's a it's a horseshoe.
Yeah, horseshoe. Yes.
It's a horseshoe. So you'll have.
It's open ended on one. Like
It's
they'll have-
open ended on one side,
yeah.
so you'll see the the Pawtucket River.
Yep.
As you're looking out
Nice.
from the grandstand.
That's sick.
Closer to the highway. So if you're looking off if you're coming off School Street, the side that you're seeing is where the Jumbotron's going to be. Right now it's an 11,000 seat stadium that can expand out to 15,000 seats, and then if they close out the horseshoe, it could even be more seats. So you could
11,000 is a perfect start, though.
It's a great
I
start.
think that's going to be. It's going to visually. It's going to look and sound so cool in there.
Sound.
The sound and
It's
just
going to
the
be loud.
singing.
Yep.
People are ready, man. I'm telling you, like it is. I know where 2025 is the stadium open, but next year you got to make sure you pack it out at Bryant University because that's where you're going to begin to build the culture.
And it will be turf, which, yeah.
Sort of the standard.
But
these
I
days.
think the decision for turf is twofold. One, cost of running, of keeping good grass.
Landscaping and
2, it will be a
Multiple events.
multi-purpose
Probably
field.
for, like,
They can have
concerts and
concerts
stuff,
and-
yeah.
The way it was described to me yesterday, they've already dug into the ground for football events, lacrosse events. Like, that place is designed to hold those types. So
just imagine like state tournaments for for soccer, football,
lacrosse,
concerts.
Yeah.
They want to host concerts there. Hey, don't forget there's a little thing called the World Cup coming in 2026.
and Copa America coming in
And
2025
Copa America
or 2024.
I think it's next year. It
2024.
won't be ready for
Yeah, it
next
won't be ready for next year.
But 2026 World Cup,
Yeah.
it's already being put out there. Nothing confirmed as a training facility for whoever gets located in this area. Could be Argentina, could be Portugal, could be Spain,
Could be Brazil.
could be the United States. So
Italy.
could be Italy.
Could be Italy.
They got to qualify first.
I know.
Sorry.
All right, that does it for us. New England Soccer Weekly. Appreciate Lori Lindsey. I would expect to see a Spaces next Tuesday night before the Revs and the Union game on Wednesday. I'll do a Spaces, and then we can kind of go through any news that develops, and we'll see what happens with Kai Wagner. Anything else that might pop up along the way? Oh, yeah, we didn't even get to the fact that Tomas Vatslik's not coming back in 2024. The Revs are buying out his contract. That was a waste of a signing. See you next week.
Buyer's remorse.